This is Ambition Today, a podcast show hosted by me, Kevin Siskar, where we discuss with other entrepreneurial and ambitious people what it means to achieve success, grow your startup, try to change the world, and go after your dreams today. This is episode 2 of Ambition Today. We are joined by Hans Bakan, a serial entrepreneur based out of New York. We will discuss what it's like to start multiple companies and what you learn from each one, how you adapt, and how you grow. Hans' most recent startup, Open Dreams, is working to change the way education works in emerging markets around the world. All that and more on this episode of Ambition Today.
Looking to make your dreams come true? Needing that extra push to become more successful? Then you've come to the right place. Welcome to Ambition Today with your host, Kevin Siskar.
What's up, world? I am Kevin Siskar, and you are listening to Ambition Today. On today's program, we have Hans Bakan, serial entrepreneur with a background in finance, exited a few years ago with EconoCast, and is now working on Open Dreams. Hans, welcome.
Thank you for having me here. It's great to be here, and hello, world.
Hello, world, indeed. So, Hans, let's just jump right into it. We're warming up here with our second episode of Ambition Today, and so one of the things we want to talk about is success, failure, but at the same time, use the personal story of your journey through entrepreneurship to tell those skills. So, I know you have a background in finance, and so I know that you started a company around the same time I did. We're both graduates of the Founder Institute a few years ago. So your background specifically is in finance. So I just wanted to ask, so how did that lend itself? Was that an advantage, disadvantage you found when you were being a first-time entrepreneur founder?
Sure. I would say, first of all, I'll clarify that my background really is in economics. I'm an economist by trade, and it was extremely advantageous in terms of what I was doing. First of all, I'm very passionate about what makes the world go around. I think about the world every day. How politics, social events, economics, different cataclysmic events can actually affect the world. And through that, I was able to figure out a way to predict data, predict forecasts, economic forecasts around the world, which I was very excited about. And I would say for my advice for any kind of entrepreneur going into launching an idea or a startup, figure out something that you're very passionate about, that you would love to do day in, day out, and you'll never work a day in your life. So just to answer your question, my background in economics was extremely helpful.
Yeah, and I second that as well. So I think the ability as an entrepreneur to think holistically about things, take a step back, see the bigger picture, but then also have the technical know-withal and skills to deep dive when necessary is a pretty powerful combination, and lets you as a founder be the most productive. I mean, do you agree with that? Or
I absolutely agree. I mean, you have to have a 20,000 feet view in the air. You have to have a vision of where your company is going. You have to have that overarching kind of direction and focus for your company, but you also have to pay specific attention to all the details, all the contracts, all the development code, anything else that other people would actually see very minute. You have to be on top of that, very sharp, pay sharp attention to details, but also have a vision for where you want your company to go.
Yeah, I know in product management they actually directly refer to that as like the I or whatever, like the letter I. And so you have the top of the capital I, where your head's in the clouds, and then you have to be able to draw the line down and then completely operate on the ground as well. So that's definitely agreed. So with that, so knowing that now, so a few years ago we both went through the Founder Institute. We both started companies. I started Brinkway. You started Taxi Buddy. Can you tell me a little bit about the Taxi Buddy journey and what that first company was? That your first company? And if so, what did you learn that first time around?
So Taxi Buddy was my first official company. I'd started other venture startups back in college. None of them were definitely official, but they kind of let me plant a seed for my entrepreneurial mindset for later on in my life. I always knew that I wanted to start something. Just had to figure out my where my finger was on it. In terms of Taxi Buddy and going through the founders.
So real quick, so what was Taxi Buddy, just to give the listeners a little background?
So Taxi Buddy was a taxi sharing application where two people coming from one source, and I used to fly into JFK Airport all the time. I would get in the line and try to find someone to share a $60 taxi ride back with me to New York City. Unfortunately, this is a very tough thing to do. A lot of people have social barriers that they have to overcome to actually share this. Furthermore, there's a lot of business travelers that actually don't want to share a taxi, but I thought there was some kind of value creation in this, and not only sharing rides on taxis, but also sharing your individual car as well. And this is before the time of Uber, before the time of Lyft that has since then has revolutionized.
I remember you pitching it back in the day, and no one even ever mentioned Uber or Lyft, and it's interesting because you were right. I mean, Uber recently, you can now do ride sharing. It's a flat fare, $5 a person, $10 a person around Manhattan. Lyft, you share your car. So you were spot on, yeah. And the industry definitely went that way.
Yeah, and it's a very keen to point out that it really matters on the execution. So the execution for me, the way I envisioned it was actually the third or fourth iteration of the way Uber and Lyft had went about it. For me, getting two different people to come together to share an app within the 5 minutes that they're at the airport proved to be a very difficult obstacle to overcome. Whereas Uber and Lyft, they already had the native users of their apps, from the original car sharing. Or the taxi service, right? Rather, and then they're able to branch out to other verticals, which eventually led to ride sharing. But yeah, it was a keen lesson for me, trying to execute an idea which, quite frankly, was basically putting the cart before the horse, rather than the other way around. So execution is everything.
Yeah, and it's hard to see that at the time. I mean, exactly, like Uber, Lyft did it as later iterations, and that goes to show, how entrepreneurs can be in the same industry, same vertical, going after the same thing, even competing, and nobody is going to do it the same way because everybody has different prior experiences. They grew up differently. They think differently. They go about these things differently. And so, an entrepreneur's like, oh, I shouldn't tell anyone my idea. In reality, even if you scream it from the mountaintops, it's people aren't going to execute it out the same way you envision it in your head.
Yeah, and I would follow that up by saying, that your idea is probably worth 2%, and your execution is really 98%. And a lot of that's the team that you build, the people you work with, but also how you actually go about the process. And again, two different people could have two different ways to solve the same problem, but the way they get there and that route they take, the journey makes all the difference.
So would you say that I have my thoughts on this, and I'll tell you in a minute, but I want to hear your opinion first. So what do you think the number one reason is that first-time founders fail at their company?
I'd say the number one reason really is not really thinking about everything that could go wrong. At any one time, you have to have a lot of self-confidence, self-belief that you're gonna push your company forward and your way is the right way. But at the same time, you also have to have a lot of self-doubt. You always have to be guessing your assumptions, second guessing yourself, but really cutting off all the loose ends of things that actually could go wrong. A lot of that could be avoided by joining incubation lab like Founders Institute, but also relying on a lot of different resources, doing market surveys, just figuring out all the little things that can go wrong in your company before you actually go head over heels and put blinders on, believing that you have God's gift to man.
Right. All right, great. So we went through Taxi Buddy. Obviously, there was lessons to be learned there, and then your next company was EconoCast. Tell us a little bit about what EconoCast was, and then I'd like to discuss what were those lessons you learned from the first company that benefited you most when doing the second company, EconoCast.
So EconoCast is a high-level econometric statistical model that uses a lot of algorithms, a lot of cloud-based computing to predict economic data in a way that economists around the world actually don't know about or haven't really solved. It's not something that you can actually learn in econometrics class. It's a completely different way of forecasting, which is a space that many economists around the world try to do. And EconoCast, we forecast over 30 different countries, look at big economic data figures such as GDP, inflation, industrial production, labor markets, unemployment rates, that sort of things that can really affect investment decisions. Where
on a global scale.
On a global scale, which was a big selling point for this, was it was able to do it in a very fast iterative process. Didn't need a lot of attention to very nitpicky details where economists pour over figures every single day in, day out. This Econocast system was able to do that job that usually takes 10 hours within 5 minutes or so. So
wow.
It basically, as I see it, revolutionized the way economic data forecasting should be made. And it's an arena that many tech entrepreneurs don't even think about or look at, given its arcane and maybe even boring nature of the dismal science of economics. So that was one advantage, was there's really not that many tech entrepreneurs in this space. But then at the end of the day, there's a lot of reward to be made from it if you're able to predict, where GDP in Turkey is going, or where inflation in Brazil is headed, or where the employment markets in India look like. Then you can make a lot of investment decisions, and there's multi-billion-dollar firms around the world that would pay actually a lot of money for that type of accuracy and high level of forecast.
Yeah, that's pretty powerful. How did it predict the Greece thing playing out?
So in the Greece thing, that would basically show up with a lot of growth numbers, employment numbers, as well as inflation figures in Europe. The thing about Econocast, it predicts high frequency data points. And then also we have a longer term horizon, but usually in terms of high frequency data points, those affect markets on a shorter term basis. And right now, because Greece is actually more of a political event than economic event, right now it looks like they're putting Band-Aids on top of Band-Aids.
Right.
So how it will play out later on, if they actually do default and exit the Eurozone, that's another story to be had, and I have some pretty strong opinions about that.
All right, great. So Econocast exited for an undisclosed amount last year to a company, also undisclosed. But so the first company, Taxi Buddy, didn't work out. What did you learn explicitly from that first company, the lessons that brought into the second company and attributed kind of to its success, that you would recommend other entrepreneurs be sure that they don't mistake or do wrong on their first company?
Yeah, so I would say the first mistake, or I wouldn't even call it a mistake, because I believe you learn from all your mistakes. But the thing that I didn't necessarily have a background in taxi transportation, or I didn't know all the mechanics of how the regulations worked at the airport for even sharing a taxi. So I would say find something that you're completely passionate about, but also you're very knowledgeable in. If you have a background knowledge in a particular industry, that's something that should be leveraged, and that should be seen as a leg up for you against the rest of the field who's trying to get into your space. But besides that, in terms of setting up Taxi Buddy, in terms of going through the process and all the lessons I learned, they all contributed equally when I went to start Econocast, which I was kind of doing simultaneously at the same time, but Econocast started taking off, and I kind of redirected a lot of my efforts there. So it just kind of self-reinforced the
importance of credibility in your field as you're starting out.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right, great. Well, we'll take a quick break here, and then when we come back, I want to talk a little bit more about what you're working on now, your new company. So, be right back.
Thanks.
This is Ambition Today with Kevin Sisker. We'll be right back.
Today's sponsor of Ambition Today is Siskar.co, none other than the home of Ambition Today. Recently rebuilt, we have a brand new newsletter, goes out weekly. Sign up and subscribe, www.siskar.co. Hans, I just wanted to ask you, how important is it to stay on top of the industry, what's happening, and constantly educating yourself when you're running a company?
Well, first of all, you have to be intimately familiar with the industry you're working with, and that was one of the strengths coming into mine. I work in the economics investing community. just really knowing what's out there, what's going on, what's new, can really alert you to the changes that are happening in your industry, but also can give you a keen insight into what you can actually provide of value to that industry, and what you can do different, how you can find some kind of value creation within the space you're operating.
All right, great. So there you go. Subscribe, www.syscar.co. Sign up for our weekly newsletter, and don't miss out on any of the new news.
You're listening to Ambition Today. Visit us now at syscar.co.
And we're back. So, Hans, I want to talk about your recent company, Open Dreams. This is your third company, correct?
Yes, it is.
So tell us a little bit more about Open Dreams and what it hopes to accomplish.
So Open Dreams is a global virtual education NGO. It's a 501c3 nonprofit. Basically, where my big passion is in education, so economics and education. But I really believe that each individual around the world, no matter where they come from, has the ability to achieve a lot and to open a lot of doors, dreams, if you will. If they have that gift of education, it's a very powerful tool. So what we're doing is we're going to the developing world. My mother's from the Philippines. I'm partnering with two of my other colleagues. One's from Cuba and another one's from Cameroon. Right now we're operating just in Africa. We're working with high school students, helping them through the SAT process as well as TOEFL exams, and then helping them apply to universities here in the U.S. and Canada and elsewhere around the world in the hopes of actually getting a scholarship so that they can actually achieve their ambitions later in life. And most of the students we're working with are in the lower income demographics of the countries they actually live in.
That's incredible. So you're actually enabling, sorry for the pun, this other people's ambitions in these emerging markets in Africa. So that's incredible.
Yeah, and essentially what we want to do is be able to leverage a virtual community of mentors. So basically we have a team of mentors that meet on a one-on-one basis with each student 1 hour a week, helping them with their essays, helping them with problem areas of their SAT, helping them with anything that they actually have trouble with, and then really motivating them to get through that application process and scholarship process, because we just find that extra little bit of motivation can actually go a long way, and it can really make a difference not only in their lives but also lives of their family, and then later their community if they do return back to their hometown and make some positive impact.
What sort of qualities do you look for in the mentors? And what are you looking for there?
So one of the big qualifiers for the mentors is really their time commitment, their motivation level, but also their ambition and passion for education. Really, what we do find that we have a lot of people that want to be mentors, but if you don't have that passion to help other people, and also for education, then you don't necessarily make. We've found that it doesn't necessarily make the best mentor.
Are these mentors virtual, or they're on the ground in Africa? Or
they're all virtual. So we have team mentors in England as well as India, and then most are here in the U.S. But we try to make it possible that you can really be a mentor anywhere you are. And then we actually have experimented with having tutors on the ground. So we have two tutors helping with their math and verbal sections of their SAT, but these are local teachers there that we pay, and we want to instill some sense of employment through this positive impact as well. So we're using a combination of on the ground teachers as well as virtual mentors. Okay,
that's great. So last question in regards to mentors. So if someone listening right now wants to get involved, where would they do that?
You can go to our website. It's www.open-dreams.org. There's a dash in the middle. Apologies for that, but really, what Khan Academy did with education is what we want to do with higher education, and basically being able to take mentorship, not only not only locally, domestically, but also globally. I've always been a big believer and big part of Big Brothers Big Sisters here in New York City, and I believe that's a wonderful mentorship organization where you're committing your time to help a child, and really this is an extension of that, but we're really doing it on a virtual basis.
Wow. I kind of love this, and I think it'd be great for people to get involved, 100%. So you mentioned you're a nonprofit. So why the decision when forming the company, nonprofit over for-profit? Long-term visions. What was some of the thoughts there?
So yeah, we were actually deliberating this quite a bit when opening a 501c3, but I do believe a lot in social entrepreneurship, and I believe having a sustainable organization that's able to make a positive impact in the world is the best business to run, period. But what we saw was education. It's not necessarily a for-profit model, something like Tom's Shoes, where you have a one-for-one model, or you're selling coffee to give a gallon of water to a community in Africa. That's more of you can actually make a for-profit argument there. Right now, at this stage in the game, we haven't necessarily found that solution. How do you actually make education a for-profit business? Khan Academy was funded by the Gates Foundation, and they relied completely on donations to actually increase their appeal. And now anyone from a farmland in sub-Saharan Africa to a kid in Boston, Massachusetts could be able to receive the same quality education no matter where they are in the world, thanks to Bill Gates and Khan Academy. But yeah, we are exploring. We are tinkering with different sustainable business models for this. We just haven't necessarily found that found the right solution yet.
Right. Yeah, I mean it's definitely tricky. I was just having this discussion with another founder in New York the other day, very successful company, and we were talking. It seems that the nonprofit like to accept donations. It's the right way to go initially, but and this is my own personal opinion, but it seems like in the long term, for profit lets you grow faster, lets you get bigger. The tricky thing is keeping the morals in place, keeping that company culture in place. But if you can get bigger, get faster, you can give back quicker, faster. So you guys are open to going to for profit if you find a model, or staying nonprofit, or what are your thoughts in general?
Yeah, I think that comes with the fact of being an entrepreneur. You need to keep an open mind about everything. But in terms of the incorporation process, we're not opposed to going towards a for-profit. There's another step you can go as a B Corp. But at this point in time, this stage in the game, we are accepting donations. I'm actually funding a lot of it out of my own pocket, but it's where we see our value actually, being fulfilled in the short run. In the long term, we can actually, we can always switch business models. But at this part in the game, we are a nonprofit for the time being.
So what are you guys focused on right now? What's the next step to take Open Dreams to the next level?
So it really is that, and we're really leveraging the process that we want to eventually create a seamless transition of a community of mentors and students, highly ambitious students. One of our things we learned last year in our first full year of operations was that we really need a stringent application process. We need to get the best and most ambitious students within these countries, and that motivation level is something very, very difficult to actually measure. It's not a factor that you can put on a piece of paper and say this kid has that X factor, which is what it takes to really stand out on a college application and then eventually get a scholarship. So we're really concentrating on our process, and we think if the process can get to a point where it's seamless in scope, then we can actually leverage this and build it out to a lot of other countries, which we hopefully will do someday in the future.
So now that you've been doing this a little bit, so what sort of success rate have you seen with Open Dreams?
So with Open Dreams, we started with a class of 9 students last year, 9 mentees. Half of them actually got into universities here in the U.S. Unfortunately, we only got one that got a full scholarship through the MasterCard Scholarship Foundation. It's actually a foundation set up $500 million fund to actually help and support sub-Saharan African students who are in the lower 25 percentile of their income demographics to get into universities here. There's partner universities here in the U.S., but that's our goal, is to really put our students in position to get scholarships like that. And we've learned a lot of mistakes last year. We're hoping to build on those in the future.
Wow, that's, again, I love it. It's great. If there's any way I can mentor, I would love to be a part of this. All right, cool. So as we wrap up, I want to ask, is there any one last piece of advice you want to give to aspiring entrepreneurs getting into the game?
Yeah, it's really a theme that I've repeated again and again. It's really just find your passion. Find something that you wouldn't mind waking up in the middle of the night doing. If you're doing this for the money, you're probably doing it for the wrong thing. The money will come later down the road if you're very successful. But build the right team. The team that you work with, they'll be with you there in the trenches, and you need to have full faith that they'll have your back and you'll have theirs. And finally, just thinking about all the odds and ends that could go wrong throughout the process, and never put blinders on. Always have an open mind. Always have ability to adapt and change. Iteration is one of those key words in entrepreneurship, but you need to iterate your process. And if something's not going right, have multiple revenue streams and have different ways of acquiring customers. So yeah, at the end of the day, there's a lot of advice, but I'd say the first and foremost is be passionate about what you're doing.
All right. Well, Hans, I want to thank you for being on this episode of Ambition Today. Where can people go to find out more about you and what you're working on?
So you can go to the website. Again, it's www.open-dreams.org. You can also send me an email via info@open-dreams.org.
All right, great. So thank you, and we will see you hopefully on another episode of Ambition Today.
All right. Thanks for having me, Kevin.
Take care.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Ambition Today with your host, Kevin Siskar. For more great content and to stay up to date, visit www.siskar.co. We'll catch you next time.